Before they were pop culture legends, Sonny and Cher were just Salvatore Bono and Sherilyn Sarkeesian. Sonny Bono was a songwriter working for Phil Spector, the legendary producer behind the Wall of Sound. Cher was a high school dropout who had a powerful voice and big dreams. They met in 1962 when Cher was only 16 and Sonny was 27, and what started as a friendship quickly evolved into a deep bond, both romantic and creative. Sonny believed in Cher's voice from the beginning and helped her get backup singing gigs in songs like Be My Baby and You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin', and slowly but surely, they started creating music together. At first they performed under the name Caesar and Cleo, but nothing really took off. Then in 1965, they rebranded as Sonny and Cher and released a song that would make them stars, I Got You Babe. It hit #1 and turned them into household names almost overnight. They looked different from the usual clean-cut pop stars of the time. Sonny with his shaggy hair and furry vests, Cher with her long, straight hair and bold fashion sense. They didn't fit the mold, and that was the point. They were young, anti-establishment, and totally in love, which made them magnetic to the counterculture audience that was growing in size and influence. But even though they appealed to the youth, their sound was still pop-friendly, enough to cross over to Middle America. That mix of rebellion and mainstream charm made them a phenomenon. Their early music was a blend of folk pop and a little rock, with songs like Baby Don't Go and Just You climbing the charts. But the fame wasn't just about the music. Cher was quickly becoming a fashion icon, and Sonny was seen as the quirky, lovable partner who supported her. They were charming on TV, and their interviews often showcased their playful banter, with Sonny being the punchline to Cher's sarcastic wit. People loved watching them because they seemed real. There was no polish, no pretending. Their chemistry was electric, and it only deepened when they got married in 1969, after years of calling each other husband and wife, even before it was legal. They had a daughter, Chastity, that same year, and by then their music career had started to cool down a bit. But they were about to pivot into something even bigger, television. In 1971, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour debuted on CBS, and it was a hit almost instantly. The show blended music skits and their famous back-and-forth banter. Sonny produced the show and made sure it kept its rhythm, while Cher added the magic. The show regularly pulled in millions of viewers, and it won a Golden Globe. Guests like Carol Burnett, the Jackson 5, and even Ronald Reagan made appearances, and it became a staple of the early 70s TV. Cher's fashion on the show also became a huge part of her legacy, with daring designs that helped redefine what women could wear on television. But as the show succeeded, their personal relationship began to fray. Fame added pressure, and Sonny's need for control clashed with Cher's growing independence. What made them so compelling on screen was becoming harder to maintain off of it. Sonny was still very much in charge behind the scenes, and while Cher had always gone along with it in the early years, by the mid-70s she was finding her voice in more ways than one. In 1974, Sonny and Cher filed for divorce, and it wasn't entirely a surprise. There had been tabloid rumors for years, and anyone paying close attention could feel the tension on screen. But what was surprising was that even after the divorce, they tried to keep the act going. The Sonny and Cher show premiered in 1976, a reboot of sorts, but it didn't have the same magic. Their chemistry was still there, but something was missing. The warmth had cooled, and the jokes felt more forced. Viewers could tell they were no longer the couple everyone fell in love with. The show was canceled in 1977, and just like that, the era of Sonny and Cher was over. After the split, they went in different directions. Cher launched a solo music career that would span decades. She released hits like Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, and proved she was more than just half of a duo. Her voice, her image, and her presence made her a solo superstar, and by the late 80s and 90s, she was acting, winning an Oscar for Moonstruck, and continuing to dominate music charts. She constantly reinvented herself from pop to disco to rock to dance music, and became one of the most enduring figures in entertainment. Sonny, on the other hand, went into politics. He ran for mayor of Palm Springs in the late 80s and won, then later served as a U.S. congressman for California. It was a surprising turn, but in some ways it made sense. He was always ambitious, a planner, and someone who liked to take charge. Even though they had moved on in their careers and lives, their connection never fully disappeared. They had a complicated relationship that was built on love, tension, and a deep shared history. They had a daughter together, they changed the face of television together, and they were forever linked in the public's memory. In 1998, Sonny Bono died in a skiing accident in Lake Tahoe. He was 62. The tragedy shocked people and brought a wave of public mourning, but what stood out most was Cher's eulogy at his funeral. It was emotional, funny, and deeply sincere. She called him the most unforgettable character she'd ever met and spoke about their highs and lows with raw honesty. That moment reminded people of just how much history they had and how important their story was, not just to each other, but to American pop culture. They weren't just a novelty act or a 70s relic, they represented a time, a style, and a relationship that people connected to. Sonny and Cher were a paradox. They were traditional in some ways and totally rebellious in others. They were sweet and sarcastic, goofy and glamorous. They gave the world unforgettable music, hilarious TV moments, and a real look at what it means to love, grow, and eventually separate. Their legacy isn't just in records they sold or the shows they starred in. It's in the way they made people feel. They made you laugh, they made you sing along. Even today, people still reference their dynamic, whether it's in fashion, in comedy, or in stories of complicated couples who once had the world in their hands. Sonny and Cher were lightning in a bottle, and even after the music faded and the cameras turned off, their story still shines. Like, comment, and subscribe for daily history and culture content.